I'm Steph. I am a voluntary interviewer here at Bury VCFA. That stands for Bury Voluntary Community and Faith Alliance. I am also the host and presenter of the Butterfly Princess show on Facebook, Instagram, and I also have a radio show on Milk Valley Radio every Monday, 11 till 1, but unfortunately that's on hold at the moment because of no volunteer producer. But if there's anyone creative or anyone technical, then I'd love to hear from you. Just get in contact with me because I want to get that show up and running as quickly as I can again because I love doing it. But today, I'm here with Bury VCFA. Last month, I was here with Paul Fairweather and we discussed the work he's doing for the LGBTQ plus community within Bury. This month, I'm joined by Helen Tomlinson, who is the CEO of Bury VCFA. And she's going to talk about about the voluntary sector, about her role as the Chief Officer of the Bury VCFA. So it's shaped up to be a very interesting chat. So hi Helen, thank you for joining me today. First of all, could you tell me a bit about yourself?
Absolutely, yes, and thank you for the invite to come and speak to you
today.
You're
more than welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, a little bit about me and a little bit about, I suppose, how I got involved in the voluntary sector.
Yeah.
So I've been working in the voluntary sector for about 25 years now, so quite a long time. But when I started in the sector, I worked initially in mental health. So I worked with young people with mental health problems. So that's how one of my first jobs in the voluntary sector was supporting young people under stress, supporting them with one-to-one support and providing them with kind of support through groups and peer support groups and self-help groups. So that's where I got in to work.
I suppose that links in very well with Bury VCFA as well, because at Bury VCFA we have the Beacon service, and am I right? Well, we'll interview the manager of the Beacon service at another time, but that's all about supporting people with mental health issues and all that, isn't it? So it links in quite well.
Yeah, there's a connection there with social prescribing, which is exactly what you've described. So supporting people with a wide variety of kind of health and social care needs, and that's all about connecting people into community activity. And I suppose that's probably one of the reasons that kind of attracted me to Bury as well, because the role not only involved working with voluntary sector groups, but also connecting people into those groups to support their health and well-being. So yeah, I've worked in voluntary sector a long time. I used to work with voluntary and community groups over in Bolton, and I started off as a self-help support worker, working with very small grassroots community groups, helping them to grow and develop. And then over time my role changed, and I worked a lot with diverse communities over in Bolton. I did a lot of work with African communities and refugee communities, and then I kind of moved through the organisation, I suppose, into various different roles, and then I left there last year to join Bury because I live in Bury, and I thought it'd be great to come and work in the place that I live.
So that sounds very interesting. And talking about Bury, obviously you're the Chief Officer of Bury VCFA. So can you tell me a bit about that role and what it entails on a day-to-day basis, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic role. I love working in Bury, and I think what I would say is that no 2 days are the same. It's very, very diverse in the kind of work that I do. So I spend a lot of time with community groups, meeting voluntary sector organisations and leaders. I spend a lot of time working with public sector colleagues. And really I see my role as about really sort of championing shining a light on the amazing work that the voluntary sector's doing and the work of volunteers, just like yourselves really,
Yeah.
and about the difference that volunteering can make to people's lives. So I spend a lot of time talking about and shouting about the vital role that the voluntary sector plays really in supporting individuals and communities in Bury.
So obviously the community sector is a very big sector and it's growing, but talking about how it's growing, can we talk now specifically about some of the challenges that are in the voluntary sector, specifically in the Bury area, because we are a Bury organisation?
Yeah, that's right. And I think we've seen lots and lots of challenges during the last couple of years during COVID. But I think what we have seen is the voluntary sector really, I suppose, excelling in the work that they're doing around that response during COVID. They responded really quickly. They were out working. They didn't stop working. Volunteers were out during COVID. So they've got an incredible role to play, I think. But I think following COVID, there are still a lot of challenges. So as we know now, there's different challenges around cost of living, about inequalities, people living in poverty. And what we're seeing and what groups are telling us is that there's a real increased demand on their services. So groups are telling us volunteers are working really hard to support people around issues that they might never have had to before.
What sort of groups do you work with? Just to give us a few examples, specifically in Bury, obviously.
Yeah. So in Bury, we've got, just to give you a little bit of context, we think there are about 1,200 voluntary and community groups in the borough.
Yeah,
it is a lot. And about 70% of those are what we call micro, so really, really small groups with limited income really, so incomes up to about £10,000. That's what we class as micro.
Yeah.
And those groups will be doing things like so food support, so some of the mutual aid groups that will be providing food parcels to people, the food banks. We also work with groups that are supporting people around health and social care needs, so carers groups. We work with groups that work with children, young people, old people, environmental groups, so from your litter picking groups right through to some of those groups that are really campaigning around kind of climate. There's groups out there that work with animal welfare. What I always say is, if you can think of a subject area, think of a theme, there's probably a group out there that's doing that work. And as you know from the conversation you'd had with Paul, there's a lot of work going on at the moment around equalities and diversity. Paul obviously works with the LGBTQI community, but we also have a really diverse sector that's also working with our communities of identity, so those communities from South Asian community, African community, and in fact just today, because we're in Black History Month, it's October, just today there was an amazing event that took place in Bury which brought together communities to celebrate and also sort of champion the role of black people, black community organisations in delivering amazing support to communities in this area.
So thank you for that, Helen. Right. So you've been in the role of Chief Officer for Bury VCFA for a year now. Can you tell us of any exciting projects, campaigns, projects and events that are coming up in the next few weeks or months? Because off camera we were talking about the Trustees Week, and so is there anything else coming up in the very near future or beyond?
Absolutely. So Trustees Week is a big one for us, because without trustees we wouldn't have these amazing voluntary and community groups that we've got in Bury. So we'll be doing plenty of promotion and showcasing the role of trustees during Trustees Week in November. We've also got, so for the first time we're actually running a in-person annual general meeting as well. So we've got our first AGM in person happening at the end of November. And the theme for that is going to be around valuing volunteers.
Absolutely.
So really keen to get some groups involved in that to come and showcase their work as well. The other thing I wanted to mention as well, because one of the key areas for us is around training and skills development, and we're really keen to hear from voluntary and community groups about what their changing needs are in terms of training, so that we can start to pull together a really great training programme for next year as well.
Thank you. And has there been a specific activity that you have personally been involved in that you are proud of something that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think because, so I'll give an example of something that I'm personally involved with, because I'm also a trustee myself for a small charity. It's not in Bury, but it's a charity that's working with people who are living in period poverty. So it's a charity
That's
called...
a really good big thing at the moment.
Yes. So it's a charity called Fresh as a Daisy that works with very simple idea around collecting donations, and then redistributing donations to women and girls that really need it. So I'm really proud of that work. I work with some fantastic people on that project.
That's a really interesting project, that, because people think, that everyone can afford, sanitary towels, tampons, but that really isn't the case. And there's so much negativity, isn't there, around, talking about period poverty, that women and girls, can't afford it, especially with the cost of living now.
That's right. There's so much stigma still about talking about periods and period poverty. And one of the things that we wanted to do through the group was not only get products out to those that needed it, but also raising awareness of some of that, the misconceptions, and also sort of challenging misconceptions, and also raising awareness actually that period poverty is a thing, and it's at these times during the cost of living, it's important that there's small groups like that are able to work to support women and girls that need it most.
So we've talked about your role now, Helen, and it's very interesting, but like we all need some time to ourselves for our mental and physical well-being. So what hobbies and interests do you enjoy outside of the workplace?
That's a brilliant question, and I'm really lucky because I've got an allotment, and one of the things I love to do when I'm not in work is be out on the allotment. I love going out in the fresh air, doing something quite physical, and it's also, I suppose, that sense of achievement you get when you've grown something that you can then eat. So growing your own fruit and veg is something that I love doing, and just being out there, meeting other people on the plots, and it's just a lovely way to spend your time, really. So that's what I like to do in my spare time when I'm not working.
Well, thank you, Helen. It's been very insightful into getting to know you as a person, but obviously your role as Chief Exec Officer at Bury VCFA. Thank you.
And thank you to Steph for the work you're doing around shining a light on some of the work that we're doing, and for the volunteering that you're doing for VCFA.
Thank you. Well, that is it for today's interview, everyone. I hope that you found it very insightful.